to abide by the ceasefire. Joining us now to discuss this and so much more is Mr. A.R. Hoffman. He is a correspondent with the New York Sun and kind enough to join us right here on the Live Zone. A.R., good to see you, sir, and welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be with you. Happy to be here.
Let's jump into this. Let's start with the back and forth that we are all seeing unfold before our eyes, with regard to Israel and Iran. Now, despite the president's remarks that perhaps this could come to an end, perhaps it's not coming to an end, who knows right now with regard to the rhetoric that we're hearing on all sides. The question is, do you think this could potentially lead to an all-out war?
Well, I think the chances of that are a little bit less likely this morning than they were over the past week or so when I was on the ground in Tel Aviv, sheltering from rocket fire virtually 24 hours a day. We've seen a couple dramatic developments here. The first is obviously America's involvement in the bombing of some of those highly sensitive nuclear sites in Iran, including Fordo, Isfahan, and Natanz, and then some movement here for a ceasefire. I think for the moment, both parties seem to be content, although that was a very chaotic last few hours. We saw attack on the southern city of Beersheba by Iran, kill 4 people who were in a shelter but who suffered a direct hit. We saw Israel kind of in the moments before ceasefire itself striking Iranian sites. So for the moment, the president is putting all of his considerable weight behind ensuring that both sides abide by a ceasefire. But this is a very volatile situation that could explode again at any moment.
Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head with that one. We clearly heard the president drop the F-bomb earlier. Obviously very frustrated that this continues to be an issue. Do you think that at some point both sides will finally get the memo, if you will, that, hey, de-escalation, that's what the focus is, and that's what the president, at least here in America, is hoping for?
I do. I think it's in both sides' interests, all right? On the one hand, Israel, I think, is largely happy with what it's managed to achieve, both against nuclear sites, also against ballistic missile capacity, as well as the upper echelon of Iran's military leadership. Those are really astonishing achievements that Israel has to feel pretty good about. On the Iranian side, I think the interest is self-preservation. Right? I mean, the regime has taken significant losses. It now needs to chart its path forward. One thing to look out for is, will there be internal unrest in Iran now that the regime has been potentially weakened? So I wouldn't be surprised if, while of course Iran continues saber rattling, they turn their focus on ensuring that the regime itself, which has been in power for 46 years and has never been more threatened than it is this morning, manages to kind of get a grip and stay in place.
AR, obviously, we know that the U.S. struck several nuclear sites in Iran. However, the question remains, was it successful? Not only was it successful, but there's speculation as to whether or not some of the items needed in order to make a nuclear bomb were removed prior to that strike. Are you hearing anything about this?
I am. I'm hearing that by and large, that U.S. involvement was pivotal. Remember, only America has the so-called bunker-busting bombs as well as the B-2 bombers necessary to execute those strikes. Satellite images, we're seeing some of them here, show significant damage from those attacks. And I think if you're Israel, every day you buy that you push back Iran's effort to obtain a nuclear weapon is another day of safety and security for your citizens, right? So the question is not, can Iran be forever prevented from getting a nuclear bomb, but does this significantly slow down the mullah's timeline? And I think it does. We'll see, what facilities are intact, what facilities are damaged. So we're hearing conflicting reports about whether uranium was spirited away or in fact was not taken out, evacuated, and was damaged. But I think by all accounts, Iran's nuclear project is in much worse state today than it was 12 days ago when this war began.
AR, I got about a minute left, and I want to make sure we touch on this prior to exiting, and that is, we know that initially President Trump called for the removal of the supreme leader. The White House then walked that back, if you will. Then today, the president stating that he is okay if the current regime stays in place.
Yeah. Well, this is the elephant in the room. Is this war about neutering Iran's nuclear capacity, or is there much bigger game at play, and that is regime change? The president has sent mixed signals about that, but I think that confusion is reflective of a complicated reality, namely that America's record in imposing regime change from outside has not been spectacular in recent decades, to put it mildly. So I think where America and Israel are at is creating the conditions for possible regime change by limiting the current regime's ability to damage the West. And hopefully over time, that enables Iranians themselves to achieve regime change. I'll just say, some of Israel's final targets during this war were against a prison used to house dissidents and other symbolic centers of the Islamic Republic's power. And I think that was a kind of goodbye message, or a departing message, to say, there's a potential here for a new day in Iran, and hopefully it comes sooner rather than later.
Yeah, something we are all awaiting on pins and needles with regard to if that actually happens. Yet again, we have been speaking with Mr. A.R. Hoffman, correspondent with the New York Sun, and yet again kind enough to join us right here on the Live Zone. Sir, truly appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
All right, guys, we'll take a quick break. On the flip side of that break, we'll lighten things up a bit. Celebrity Dish with Media Prince coming up next, right here on the Live Zone.